Hey, hi, hello, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Melanie Steele, and today we are going to be setting our goals for Q3. I cannot believe it is Q3 already. When I was doing my content calendar earlier in the month, I had not even thought about scheduling a video talking about goals for Q3 because in my mind it was so far away. And then a couple of days ago, I realized, oh, actually, it's really not. And I need to get myself together and film this video so that you and I can set our Q3 goals together. So in this video, we are first going to go back and look at our goals for Q2, whether we set them formally or informally, just in our minds. It's important to know where we've been and what we've been doing before we go ahead and decide where we're going and what we want to achieve in Q3. I use the HB90 planning system, which is a productivity course by Sarah Cannon, who is an author here on YouTube. She is not running the course this quarter. She's taking time off to both write her own books and focus on time with her family. So this is giving me a chance to do things maybe a little differently. I absolutely love HB90 and I'll recommend it all the day long. It's fantastic. But when I started using HB90, I was in a slightly different position. I was working part-time, so I didn't have all of the hours I do now to work on my book. So it was really useful because it helped me to adjust my goals based on the time I actually had, which is the key thing about HB90 that makes it unique, is that we work from the time we have available and base our goals on that, which is very important because so many of us have big lofty goals, and if you're someone who's working 40, 50 plus hours a week, maybe you have to rein in those goals a little bit and be more realistic with your time. Now, I no longer have a part-time job outside the home. Writing is solely what I do. I don't have any children. I don't have any other big responsibilities. So essentially, my time is pretty much my own, other than doing things around the house. I have a lot of time to play with, so I don't need that kind of scheduling help quite as much as I did. So I can be a little more flexible. I'm still going to be following it for the most part, though, in terms of how many goals I set and how I'm going to break those goals down. So I'll be sharing that with you. But I highly recommend, particularly if you're someone who is writing as a side hustle and you feel that you need a more solid system for goal setting, check out HB90 when it opens in the next round, which will be Q4. So I set myself two goals for Q2, and they were to get my novel, The Lunar Quartz Library, ready for beta readers. My second goal was to have joyful movement for 30 minutes of each day across 5 days as a minimum. Okay, so the first goal of getting the Lunar Quartz Library ready for betas was not wholly achieved. However, it was mostly achieved. I have completed the first draft and I'm currently revising it and getting it ready for betas. So it will be just 2 to 3 weeks past the end of Q2 that it will be ready. So slightly longer than I had anticipated. But for me personally, I'm going to call that a win because it's like 80% achieved on that goal. And to me, it's not really a problem if things take a couple of weeks longer. The only deadlines I'm on are my own. But I set this goal so that I had something solid to focus on in getting the work done. The other goal around doing joyful movement for at least 30 minutes a day across 5 days a week, this was mostly achieved. There were some times when I needed to take some time off for various reasons. But for me, I feel this is also a win because this helps me build a consistent exercise habit. It helps me to find forms of exercise that I enjoyed, hence why I call this joyful movement and not just exercise for 30 minutes. I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with exercise, so using the term joyful movement was very purposeful so that I focused on finding ways to move my body that I enjoyed and did not feel like I was doing some sort of boot camp or anything that was just, no, not for me. So again, whilst I did not exercise 5 days every week for the entirety of quarter 2, I feel that I made enough progress, more than 80% of the time, to also call this a win. Whilst I would consider myself as having achieved both of these goals, certainly there were things I learned from each that I want to incorporate into my goal setting for Q3. So I'm thinking about things that I could have done better, things I could have improved. And I think the main thing for me was not relying solely on motivation to get things done, which I think is something we are all very guilty of. We wake up, we don't feel like doing a thing, there's not a huge sense of urgency attached to it, so we kind of let it slide. I definitely had days where I felt like that. And the mistake there is relying on motivation to get things done, because 9 times out of 10, it's a bad strategy. It's not going to work. What works is building consistency, building this kind of positive momentum, so that maybe if I show up on a day where I'm not feeling super enthused about doing 30 minutes, I could still show up and do 5 or even 10. That way I don't lose the momentum, and I still have a sense of accomplishment that I did something, even if it wasn't the entire 30 minutes I had planned. If I'm doing exercise, or if it was for writing my book, maybe my goal was to draft a whole chapter. Maybe if I just did half of that, or even just a single scene, I could still call that a win, because it would help to build positive momentum. So having consistency, I think, is something that I want to keep working on for Q3, so that I can keep making strides towards my goals. And of course, when we are making goals, we are making them in a much bigger context than just the quarter. All the goals I make are ultimately going towards a much bigger dream life vision. As the saying goes, energy flows where focus goes. Something like that. Essentially, you need to know where you're going in order to get there, or else we're going to be falling off the path, going all sorts of different ways. We need an end goal, and we need to decide on the steps we are taking to get there. So having the Unicorns Library ready for betas is obviously taking me one step closer to having this book published, but it's also taking me a step closer to my much bigger goals of this being at least a 4-book series, and obviously publishing books beyond that, and working my way up to a certain income level with my writing. So that is the bigger goal that is attached, and I have broken down into, let's focus on this book, this draft at one time, so that I can again build this momentum towards achieving the bigger life vision overall. The goal around joyful movement is focused on a much larger goal of continuing to be healthy and well into my 40s, because as we know, going into your 40s as a woman, you are approaching things like perimenopause, and other issues are likely to come up. And you also potentially start to lose things like mobility and flexibility. And these are things I was trying to avoid. Essentially, being 40 for me is not an excuse just to let things slide. I want to be someone who is very, strong and healthy-ish in their 40s, because, well, no one's perfect. I just want to make sure that I am setting up a foundation so that as I'm getting older, into my 50s and 60s, that I still have a strong body that I can count on, and a strong body to keep me exploring the world, essentially. In terms of things that I did this quarter that perhaps didn't serve that main kind of dream life vision overall, things that were maybe a time suck, or things that didn't move the needle that I need to stop doing for the kind of upcoming quarter, for me, it was Instagram. When I first started on this author journey and started taking it more seriously and setting up an Instagram account, my initial goal, I think back in either Q4 of the year before or Q1, was to reach 1,000 Instagram followers. To me, this felt like a very solid number. And it felt like if someone were finding my account after reading one of my books and they saw I had 1,000 followers, that it would make the account more legitimate somehow. I just had a thing that 1,000 followers was where I wanted to be, and that was a measure of success. Don't get me wrong, I don't sort of vastly disagree with that now. But I realized that having to film things like reels and create the content, um, after a while, I realized this is just not moving the needle for me because, you post content, you get a handful of likes, reels, they live and die within a 24-hour period for the most part. It felt like a lot of effort for a very short lived reward. And whilst I do not regret building up my Instagram account to this kind of 1,000 followers, I realized that it can just become a time suck because I don't have time to, comment on all of the accounts that I follow. Building community that I think is very difficult because of the very short-lived nature of all the posts. And that is one of the reasons that I moved to YouTube, that I felt was a much better platform for building community, because the videos, they're far longer. You could be watching this many years after I filmed it, for whatever reason. You have the comment section, where people can actually start talking to one another and it doesn't just disappear. Essentially, when I was really thinking about my overarching goals of building a community around my books, I realized Instagram was not the place that I wanted to build this community, and that I wanted to build it here on YouTube. So one of the things I have decided going forward is that my Instagram, I will post to it on a more ad hoc basis. Of course, when my book is getting close to publication, there will be lots of promotional posts over there, because it's still going to reach at least a portion of the people who follow me, and maybe some who don't. It would be silly not to post things about my upcoming book release on there. So it is a tool, but it is not where I want to focus my time, to focus on my overarching goal of building a community around my books. And in terms of the things I did that I felt did move the needle, or at least brought me some joy, the joyful movement. So, as I have previously mentioned, I have a bit of a love hate relationship with exercise, and finding a form of movement I enjoyed was definitely transformative for me. And find a way that I could move my body that didn't feel very like hard or difficult, or if it did, it also felt joyful, which for me was engaging in things like ballet, bar, and Pilates, even at a very clumsy beginner type level. Finding a way to move my body that I enjoyed was absolutely one of my biggest forms of joy from the past quarter. Because I spent a lifetime telling myself that I hate exercise, I'm no good at it. And whilst I'm not ever going to be an athlete of any kind, finding this small way to move my body made such a big difference for me. The other thing that I really enjoyed pertaining to my other goal, like writing my book, other than drafting it, was getting the chance to connect with other people that were going through drafting their book, whether that be here on YouTube or on Instagram. And even though it wasn't a kind of real life, real time interaction, seeing the kind of difficulties that other people went through really kind of solidified my own journey and gave me hope that everyone is struggling, but that's okay, because at the end of the day, a great book is going to come out of this. That we're not all going to get stuck at the first draft, that there is the possibility of completion, because other people have done it. So yeah, getting to see other people's journeys with their writing was definitely another moment of joy for me during this time, because being an author can be a very lonely profession, unless you happen to have people in your actual real life who are also writing. Most of the time, your connections to other writers are going to be online, and whether that's just through following on Instagram or YouTube, or maybe you have a more personal relationship with someone. kind of having that community is very useful, and it feels less isolating, which can often have a negative impact on your ability to write. So yeah, finding other people that were going through this journey was a positive takeaway for me. I feel that my plan for Q2 was very realistic. As I said, I have lots of time to devote to my writing, and I was also beginning to understand my energy levels in a more detailed way. So I was able to plan my day to achieve these two goals in a way that made sense to me. So, in that respect, my goals definitely felt realistic. In terms of things I want to carry through to Q3, I want to keep the positive momentum going and still engaging in all of the tasks relating to my goals, even if it's just a small part, even if I don't achieve the task completely in one sitting. Saying to myself, it's okay that we have made some progress towards a task or a goal, rather than thinking that, I'm a failure because I didn't get my 30 minutes of exercise in this morning. And I think the other thing that I want to bear in mind going into Q3 is broadly what I was saying about focusing on things that move the needle, both from a finance perspective and also from the goal of wanting to build community. So, as I said, steering away from Instagram and focusing on YouTube. But also, as I get close to publication, to follow a path that allows me to generate income from various different sources, so that I'm not solely reliant on either that one book or my previous back catalogue. I want to expand a little bit, and I have various ideas for how I'm going to do that. I'm not sure if I will be sharing them here because some of them are still very broad outlines in my mind, but I do have certain ideas and plans around my books for other ideas for income sources. That is my review of my Q2, and I hope you have followed along with the questions as well to review what you got up to, what you did or did not achieve, and what you want to take through to Q3 and what you want to leave behind because it's no longer serving you. So, Q3 goals. I'm sticking with my two goals as opposed to three. I did three goals back in Q4 or 2024. It was a bit much. So I'm going to stick with setting two goals. So, goal number one, to publish the Lunar Quartz Library. And goal number two, consistently publish on YouTube. So it is my goal to have the Lunar Quartz Library published by the end of this quarter. So that is the end of September. The end of September, I will be turning 41. So it would just be amazing to have my first full-length novel out there in the world as I'm celebrating my birthday and continuing on into this decade. I think is eminently doable. I am about halfway through my revisions now, and I am going to get this out to betas in the next fortnight for sure. And that leaves me plenty of time to give them several weeks to read it, and then give myself several weeks to do line and copy edits. I have the cover ready to go. I've been working on all of the details I will need for when I upload this to Amazon. So essentially all of the kind of stuff in the background is good to go. I still need to decide an exact timeline for promotion because I didn't have a date that I was set on for actually publishing it. So I needed that date in order to work backwards for how long I'm going to be kind of promoting this in the lead up to the book. So a kind of promotion calendar is still in the works, but I am very confident that I can get the Lunar Quartz Library out into the world by the end of Q3. My other goal is to consistently publish here on YouTube. Now, when I was thinking about a goal for YouTube, I thought about the typical subscriber goal. I decided to veer away from that for many reasons. One, I am someone that can get a little obsessive about metrics. I do not keep the YouTube app on my phone because the temptation to refresh to see how many views I've got, how many subscribers, particularly at this very early on stage of my journey is too much, and it can be very disheartening. So I do not keep it on my phone, and once I have published my videos, I do my utmost to not obsess over the views. It's not easy. So for me, if I set a goal pertaining to metrics like subscribers, views, hours, I know that would be detrimental to me and to my mental health overall. Um, Growing on YouTube is about consistency. It's about publishing videos, getting a little better with each one, getting to know your audience, and producing content that they want to see. These are things that I feel would definitely move the needle more than just saying, I would like X amount of subscribers. So focusing on consistency and planning my content and everything like that felt like a much more achievable goal, a goal that I was excited about, rather than obsessing over getting to a certain number of subscribers. So those are my two goals for Q3, and we are going to break those down into smaller tasks now. So one of the places that people go wrong, or at least don't do as much as they could of working towards their goals, is they set the big lofty overarching goals like I just did, and they call it a day. They don't do anything beyond that. Now, whilst these are amazing goals to have, and maybe yours are like even more so, if you do not have a roadmap for how you're going to achieve those goals, i.e., you don't break them down into much smaller pieces, they will overwhelm you, and you will probably get stuck in a kind of analysis paralysis and not do as much as you could in order to achieve those goals. So, going back to my first goal about getting the Lunar Quartz library published by the end of the quarter, I know that I need to do the following. 1, I need to finish my revisions. 2, I need to send this out to beta readers. I've already chosen those, but those would be another step if I hadn't done so already. 3, I'm giving them approximately 2 weeks to read this whilst I'm working on other stuff in the background. 4, receiving the feedback, deciding what the points acknowledged I'm going to work on, and 4, line and copy edits. Those are the 5 main steps I need to take there. Once all the edits are done, it's more things like getting it uploaded to various retailers and having the cover and things ready. But a lot of that information I have already been working on. But those would be the other kind of small additional steps that I'm not necessarily going to get into because they're a little bit more granular. But those are my kind of overarching steps to achieving publication by the end of the quarter. And for my other goal for YouTube, for publishing consistently, essentially it's having a bank of ideas that I want to film, blocking out the time in my planners to film these videos. My vlogging videos, obviously, I don't film those all at once. I prefer to film small sections at a time. That way I get to show you more things like baking or cooking or trips out, which kind of add interest rather than doing a vlog in a similar style to these videos that I upload on a Tuesday. So those are just about planning on a daily basis about what I could include in those vlogs. And it is, of course, setting aside time for editing because that takes so much longer than filming for sure. And it's also research. For me, it's things like looking at, what is popular on YouTube in terms of author channels, what is popular in terms of seasonal trends. For example, there'd be no point in me putting up a video about Q3 goals when the quarter is halfway done because people are not looking for that content there and then. And it makes much more sense to publish either now or possibly a week ago, but that's my bad. Essentially just staying on top with knowing what I want to film, making sure it's kind of appropriate to the time if it's a more seasonal content, and just committing to getting better. I like to think that every video I'm hopefully improving a little bit and building confidence and things like that. So yeah, taking those steps to move towards consistency will definitely help me to achieve that goal for Q3. Okay, so there you have it. Those are my 2 goals for Q3, along with how I review Q2, all the questions that I use, and how I break those goals down so that they feel manageable and achievable. I'd like to say thank you so much for watching, and I'd love to know, what are your goals for Q3? Please pop them down in the comments. I'm very intrigued to see what everyone else is out there trying to achieve and do. It'll be super fun to share. If you haven't already, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel as well, because even though I'm not counting those metrics, my goal, it is still very lovely to see that people enjoy my content and want to see more of it. So thank you so much for watching. I'm wishing you the best of luck with setting your goals for Q3, and I will see you soon. Bye.